to be a problem for anyone, and my voice is audible. Okay. By now, I would presume you would be very comfortable with the kind of paper Snap is, and the purpose of this session today is to just go through the what you need to do in the last few days and how to tackle the paper on that particular day. Okay. 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 So there's the agenda, the structure, what to expect, and what to do on the D-Day. Let's look at the structure first. As I mentioned in my blog post also, the SNAP exam structure has remained almost constant for quite a large number of years. It has not changed significantly. There have been minor variations, but those variations are essentially in terms of degree of difficulty, and maybe sometimes data interpretation and data sufficiency being there or not being there, and so on and so forth. But in terms of the structure, 150 questions, 180 marks, 2 marks per question for reasoning, and this is 2 marks per question for reasoning, and 1 mark per question for each of the other sections, has been the standard feature, has been the standard structure for SNAP. Also, the level of difficulty of the paper does vary. For example, the cutoff for let's say a 98 percentile has been as high as 118 marks and as low as 90 marks in different editions of SNAP. So that's the range. But even when I look at the most difficult paper of SNAP and say 98 percentile at 90 marks, which is 50% of the total marks, you'll find it to be easier than almost every other paper. So the good thing about SNAP is it's an easy paper. It's a very simple paper. It's not complicated at all. Hence, if you are able to just go quickly through the question, you should be able to do well in this particular paper. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So to me, if I look at this paper structure, the key in this paper usually is going to be how you handle this section of logical reasoning. Okay. Because of 2 marks per question, and the question not being difficult, you can reasonably do well in the section. If you do well out here, the other section, and as I said, the cutoff has been in the region of 90 and 98 percentile. Lowest 90, highest 118. Okay, and which means if you can get something like a 45 to 15 LR logical reasoning, okay, you have taken care of a significant portion of the total score required. So out of roughly about 100 marks, which you should be looking at 100 to 110, about 40% you can get from one section called legal, analytical and logical reasoning. 2 marks per question, not very difficult. The only issue which you'll have in this paper is errors. There are questions which have errors, so you need to make sure if you get confused, you're not sure about it, you think there's data missing, most probably you are correct, and you should move on to the next question. Okay. Now let's look at each of the sections. Okay. Now when you look at the English section, 40 questions, and look at this breakup. You have the biggest chunk usually is vocabulary. Out of 40 questions, 14 questions, 16 questions. SNAP 2013 was an exception. Again, SNAP 2014, 16 questions. So about over 1/3 of the paper is vocabulary. RC, typically one passage, 5 to 6 questions. Last year it was a 3-question RC passage, but it's a simple RC passage, by and large factual in nature, easy to read, and hence this is also not an issue. Okay. Similarly, when you look at the other areas, the area which can probably create problems for you could be, to some extent, grammar and spelling errors and sentence correction. Okay. That's essentially it. Okay. So apart from grammar, all other things you'll find are not difficult. Okay. And as I said, vocabulary is the mainstay of this paper. If you can handle vocabulary and related areas well, you will usually be able to do well. Because while there is direct question on vocabulary, in addition to these, you can have questions on phrases, idioms, which again will possibly come close to vocabulary. Word usage again will come close to vocabulary. So this is where you get 50% of the paper. And then you have grammar in various forms as far as this paper is concerned. You could get an occasional critical reasoning question or a couple of parajumble questions, but remember there's an analytical and logical reasoning section where most of the time such questions will appear, but in English we don't rule them out. So English is not going to be a difficult thing for most of you, especially those of you who are reasonably comfortable with vocabulary. And what do we expect? We expect a similar paper as has been the case in the last few years. So while the number of questions can vary here or there, by and large, it is going to be an easy English section. And when I say easy, essentially easy because hardly anything is essential. Yes, grammar, sentence correction can create problems occasionally, but most of the time these are easy questions as far as SNAP is concerned, in terms of grammar, etc. also. Quant. Now the name is quantitative ability, data interpretation, data sufficiency, but that does not mean DI and DS will necessarily be there. Okay. For example, if you look at data interpretation, nothing was there in data interpretation in 2013. Data sufficiency has not appeared for the last four editions of SNAP. Occasionally, some question of statistics might come in. Okay. But what is the mainstay of this paper? I will say the mainstay of this paper is arithmetic. Okay. 15 questions, 16 questions, 25 in 2013, 13 questions in SNAP 2014. So I will take this 2013 25 out of 30 questions, 40 questions as an aberration. But again, 1/3 of the paper is from here. And if you add number system also, you're talking about almost a 40% of the questions are coming from here. SNAP 2013 is an aberration in which 30 out of 40 questions are from number system and arithmetic. But to me, if you have to do well in this paper, this is the area which you have to be very, very comfortable with because this is an easy area. The questions can be solved very easily with the help of choices and they are not time consuming also. And SNAP Quant, you'll find it easier than CAT Quant. I'm sure many of you were fairly happy with Quant and CAT and were able to do reasonably well. But in this paper also you'll find Quant to be extremely easy, possibly easier than what you found in CAT. The area which tends to create problems for some of the students is modern math. Okay. Whether it's permutation, combination, probability, or set theory, or a few other areas, etc. But by and large, what you need to remember, these are not difficult questions. If there is one thing which will define, one word which can define SNAP, it is easy. It's an easy paper. And the questions which are difficult in this paper are usually not going to be more than medium level of difficulty of CAT, let's say. So high level of difficulty in SNAP is likely to be a lower level of difficulty in CAT and most of the other MBM entrances. Okay. So what is the most important part? Yes, this is the one, and this is what you should focus on. If we still have to focus on a few areas, I will suggest strongly that you focus on number system and arithmetic. Okay. Modern maths, etc. Yes, you can, and most of these things you'll find in older SNAP papers. Analytical and logical reasoning. Again, look at this paper. Data interpretation has come here, while the previous section, QA, DI, DS, did not have data interpretation at times, but it has come here. So these kind of things keep on happening. FIJ has come once and I would not be too worried about it. Critical reasoning, yes, it comes off and on. Deductive and logical reasoning, logical and mathematical reasoning, all kind of reasoning questions you can expect here. Yes, input output have not come out here in the SNAP, but almost all other kinds of reasoning questions you can always expect to see in this particular paper. Coding, decoding, sequence series, puzzles, visual reasoning questions have also come. Mathematical and logical reasoning. So you have the full range available to you. But as in the case of other sections, I'll say these are not difficult. These are easy, at best medium level of difficulty. Okay. Okay, general awareness. Okay. If you look at the breakup, this is the kind you will have. Okay. Now, general awareness typically is something which you need to just be sure that you mark only the questions you are shows off. Okay. Uh, there are all kind of questions: static, current, uh, sports, business, general areas. Everything is there. The and last year the level of difficulty was high, and hence you may, this is an area where actually if I look at this paper, this is the only area where many students struggle. Okay. Why do they struggle? Because general awareness in general is a weak area for most of the students who are preparing for MBA because of not having the habit of reading the newspapers. Okay. Okay, let us look at how you should be approaching the paper. Okay. Now, when we look at this particular paper, let me just come to this slide and try to write and try to look at the paper all over again. When we look at this paper, we have English, and in English we had 40 questions. Then you have QA, DIDS. I'm just writing QA, 40 questions. Reasoning, analytical and logical reasoning, 30 questions. This is 40 marks. This is 40 marks, and this is 60 marks. And then you have general awareness, which is 40 questions for 40 marks, which is 150 questions and 180 marks. Now, the section which tends to create problems for the students is general awareness. And when I look at the cutoff and look at 98 percentile, this is typically in the region of something like, as I said, as low as 90 to as high as 118. Okay, but in general, a score of 105 plus is good enough to get a 98 percentile. Okay? So when I'm looking at this paper, my target will always be 105. Now, knowing that most of the students have a problem in general awareness, your target should be, can I get a 105 plus with a 0 in general awareness also? Can I get general awareness out of the equation completely? That does not mean you get a 0. Because remember, in SNAP, if you get a 0 or negative in any section, you are unlikely to get a call. But if I have to get a 105 out here, I will have to look at a 45 to 50 in analytical and logical reasoning. Okay. English and quant, something like 30 and 30. So it could be 25, 35, 28, 32, but something like 60. So my starting point is, can you look at a 60 between English and quant and about a 40, 45, 50 in analytical and logical reasoning? Because if you can do that, then GA goes out of the equation, and as long as you can get something like 4-5 marks in this particular section, you don't have an issue at all. Okay? Now, this is a strategy which would be there for people who are weak in general awareness and always struggling with this. Okay? Because remember, SNAP does not have sectional cutoffs. Okay? No sectional cutoffs. So SNAP does not have sectional cutoffs. So I don't need to make sure I get a few, I get a high marks in any section. All I need to do is make sure I'm able to maximize in the areas of my comfort, which are likely to be 1 or 2 or all 3 of these areas, and ensure my weak areas don't harm me too much. Okay. Which means you try and get a score of 100 odd from these 3 sections, and maybe get a few marks in the general awareness section, and you're likely to be safe as far as this paper is concerned. Okay? So that's a broad thing you need to remember. If you happen to be good in general awareness, then maybe instead of a 10, maybe instead of a 0, you'll start by saying, can I get a 15 out here? Or maybe even a 20. Okay? And if you're weak, a 4 to 5. And because if you're looking at a 5 odd marks out here, you should look at getting a 105 out here. Okay? So that's the broad strategy I would look at as far as this paper is concerned. Okay. Now let's look at 2 different approaches for the paper. Okay. This approach says that the most important section of the paper is analytical and logical reasoning, because it's 30 questions are responsible for 60 marks. So this is 30 questions which lead to 60 marks. Okay. And since it's the questions are not difficult, or in terms of overall level of difficulty, it'll be easy to medium in terms of level of difficulty, I need to make sure I maximize here. And hence, this one approach could be to start the paper with analytical and logical reasoning, give it sufficient time to attempt all questions, possibly all questions, and which to me typically will be about 45 minutes. So this is the first thing. Spend about 45 to 50 minutes in analytical logical reasoning to get a 50 marks or 45 marks. Quickly run through general awareness, maybe about 40 minutes, and this is for those people who are, this particular thing is for those people who are very weak in general awareness. Okay. If you are reasonably good in general awareness, then obviously 2-3 minutes is not required, and this could go up to a 10 to 12 minutes. Okay. If you are very weak, you just go through the questions quickly. Whichever are those 2, 3, 4 questions which you're 100% sure of, mark the answer and just get out of this area. You spend 2-3 minutes, on the higher side 5 minutes. But if you are reasonable in general awareness, you say, okay, let me just get a 10 to 12. Let me quickly go through the question where I am 100% sure. Obviously, I mark, and I'll mark a few questions which I am not 100% sure but reasonably confident, and maybe get a spend 10 to 12 minutes in the section and get a 15 plus score in this section. So that depending upon whether you are weak or whether you are strong. If you are weak, you look at spending less than 5 minutes. If you are strong, you look at spending 10 to 12 minutes. If you are weak in the less than 5 minutes, you try to get 2 to 4 marks. If you are strong in the 10 to 12 minutes, you look at getting a 15 plus marks. But this approach says that analytical and logical reasoning is something you're comfortable with, and since it's the most important part of the paper, it can give you as much as 40% plus marks out of the total required to clear this overall cutoff. You need to do this first. Okay? So that is the first approach. And the next, okay. Okay. And the next thing would be after that would be to focus on English and then the quant part. Okay. 25 to 30 minutes for English and something like a similar amount of time in quantitative aptitude. Okay. If you are stronger in English, obviously you will get a higher score out here. And if you are stronger in quant, you will get a higher score out here. So at the end of the day, when you are looking at this section, I'm sorry. Okay. When you're looking at this section, all we are saying is, please look at this section in terms of maximizing has to happen in LR. Okay. So you have to maximize in this paper from reasoning, and for most of the students get a positive score in GK. So this is the maximizing area, and English and quant are the areas where you do a reasonable job, but they alone will not get your call. You still have to maximizing LR because, as I said earlier, and I'll keep repeating myself, this section of reasoning is 2 marks per question, and in something like 45 odd minutes you can do the paper very well. Okay? So in the first approach, reasoning, analytical and logical reasoning, something like a 45 minutes. GK, it could be something like, let me just write minutes. Okay? In GK, it could be something like 5 minutes, or it could be something like 15 minutes. Depends upon which end of the spectrum you are. Okay. Third, English, and fourth, quant. And depending upon your preference, you could toggle between the two. You could do either English first or quant first. Okay. I'm indifferent to it. But what I will always want is that analytical gets covered reasonably early in the paper. Okay. So something like 30 minutes in each. So these are 50 minutes gone, and something like a 30 odd minutes in each, 30 to 35 minutes. Okay, so this could even be 45 to 50 minutes. Okay. And that will possibly take care of your entire thing of 120 minutes. Remember, you will spend maybe about 5 minutes to scan the paper also, which we'll discuss as we go along. Okay. Obviously, if you're spending 15 minutes in GK, maybe you'll cut this down to 25 minutes, and maybe you'll cut this down a little also. So, but typically I'll say 45 to 15 reasoning, 30 to 35 in quant, 25 to 30 in English, and GK something like 5 or 15 depending upon which end of the spectrum you belong to. Okay. Let's look at the second approach. The second approach says GA or general awareness is something you want to get rid of as early as possible in the paper. Okay. So again, you'll using the same thing, you'll spend maybe less than 5 minutes or something around 10 minutes to do the same. So the difference between the first approach and second approach is in the sequence. In the first approach, we talked about doing analytical first, In the second approach, we are saying general awareness first. Now, typically, general awareness first would mean, while I said you can do it in 2-3 minutes also, but as I said earlier, a 5 minutes out here or a 10 minutes out here, 5 to 10 is the norm in both the cases. If you are good, you'll get a 20 plus. If you are reasonable, you can get a 15 plus score in this particular section. Okay, but as I said, when I'm planning to take snap paper, my starting point always is let general awareness be a bonus. Okay? So I want to treat this as a bonus, and I want to clear the cutoff based on quant, English, and reasoning. So reasoning, quant, and English, based on these, I would like to get that cutoff score of, I think 105 plus is what I would always look at. If it's a difficult paper, obviously I'll get a lower score. For example, last year, if I remember correctly, the cutoff for the symbiosis Pune would have been somewhere around 95 plus, and that is what I would target to get from the C section of reasoning, quant, and English. And general awareness, whatever I get, I'll always treat it as a bonus for myself. Okay. After general awareness, analytical and logical reasoning, because it's got the maximum marks per section and 45 to 50 minutes on it to extract 50 marks. Okay. In the worst case, maybe a 40 plus. So 40 is the minimum I will look at in this section, and 40 marks means 20 net correct answers. Okay. So 20 correct answers is what you are looking at in the worst case. Preferably something like a 22, 23 or 25 on the higher side. A 40 to 45 marks is usually not difficult in this section if you are systematic in your approach. And then the same rule applies. Whether you look at English or you look at quant, there's not too much of a change. The section you do first is the one you want to, you are somewhat weak in. Don't leave your weakest section for the end. Don't leave your weakest section for the end. You look at attempting the strong section, you starting with the analytic reasoning and GK or vice versa. Then you go to the section which is your less strong out of the two of English and GK. English and quant. You do the slightly weaker one first and then go for the stronger section, so that when you're closing the paper, at least fatigue will not kill you in terms of errors. So when I'm looking at this paper, just to summarize, English, I'm looking at a 25 to 30, quant 35 to 40, analytical reasoning. I think this you could even look it as 30 to 35 to 40, and this could go 35 up to 45. Okay, there's a small typo. I would typically look at this being about 40 to 45. Okay. Because this is a section I know if I can get a couple of extra questions right, each extra question gives me 2 marks. Okay? And in terms of sequencing, sequences typically AR, GK, for me, English or quant. Because quant is something which I know I can handle even when I am tired, I can handle it much more comfortably. But when I'm looking at snap as a paper, frankly, this will not be too big an issue, because most of you realize that the degree of difficulty of the paper is fairly low. The second approach was GK first, followed by analytical reasoning. And if you notice, typically which of the 2 approaches I talk about, I am looking at getting rid of these 2 sections early. GK, because either you know it or don't, and hence you will be able to get to the answer, you'll get to the end of the section fairly fast. And analytical reasoning, because it is the most important in terms of the marks it can give you. And as I said earlier, my target would be, can I clear the cutoff using these 3 sections? Okay. So, and here my basic target is about 105 out of these 3. And just to repeat, my target score would be something like 45, 30, and 25. Okay. So 55 and 45, 100 is typically 100, 105 is what I'm looking at. Okay. And this is what will get me to the end of the paper. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Now, this is what you need to remember. The institute-wise cutoffs. Okay. And I'm sure this question will come for you. 97 to 98 percentile, what should be that score? can't be said very clearly. As I said, it has been as low as 90 marks to as high as 118 marks, and which is a significant jump. Okay, so because 90 marks to 138, 118 marks is a jump of something like 25%. Okay, almost a 25% variation in terms of the score required from the minimum to the maximum. Okay, SCMHRD, the cutoff is a shade lower. SIBM Bangalore, SIIB Pune, they are somewhere around a 90 percentile mark. SIBM Bangalore, in fact, had upped its cutoff to something like a 92, 95 kind of a range. But off late, they have come back because they were not getting the right kind of students at that particular mark cutoff range. So in general, what you need to remember, this will be something like a 90 percentile of CAT. If you are around 90 percentile CAT, then you will be something around the 97, 98 percentile in SNAP. And this will be something like a 80 to 82 percentile of CAT. Okay. In the worst case, 83, 80 odd. Okay. And these are likely to be similar to CAT or maybe a 5 to 7, 10 percentile later, lower. Okay. And if you look at it strictly, it is these 4 institutes which are the target for most of the students. This is the number 1 institute. This is the number 2. My preference for the 3rd institute is this one. Okay. Followed by SIBM Bangalore. SIOM Nasik is a specialized institute which is focused only on operations. And unless you are very, very keen on operation, it does not make sense applying here. SITM Pune is a good backup option. And anyone from a defense category, please do, I hope you have applied to a SIMS Pune, because 80% of the seats are reserved for wards of defense personnel. They're 10% or rather 90% are reserved for defense personnel, out of which 80% are general category and defense category general, and there's a defense category special for which is 10%. And there are only 10% seats in the open category. 65 percentile is the cutoff that we look at for defense category general. Okay. SC and SC candidates, these are the things. In fact, for many of the, some are not for many, but for few of the symbiosis institutes, the number of applications that they received in the reserve category is very small. And hence they tend to call almost everyone who has applied in the ST or DA or PWD category for interview. Yeah. Extremely important. Yeah. Extremely important. Please remember, this is not a paper in which you start by saying this is the level of the paper. You have to say, okay, I have to first understand the level of the paper. Okay. So the first thing which you do in this paper is the first 2 to 3 minutes you have to scan the paper. Okay. I don't have space here, so let me create another whiteboard. Okay. So in Snap, I will say 2 to 3 minutes for scanning the paper. So for some of you who are looking at this and saying, but the total is not adding up to 120 minutes, partly because I have not budgeted for these 2 to 3 minutes of scanning of the paper. You scan the paper, you look at the structure, and you get a broad idea what the paper is likely to be in terms of the kind of question, and then you start doing the paper. Okay. I am sure after IFT you will be able to handle any kind of shock. Okay. This is something that I've never been able to understand as to why Snap cannot create, has not been able to create, to the best of my knowledge, even a single paper which has got no errors. Actually, that is true for even CAT or ZAT. Almost all the entrance tests, they tend to create papers which have got at least a couple of errors in almost all the papers. Okay. I've never been able to figure out why. Possibly the reason is there's not a full-time job for them, and they just want to create a question paper and get over with it. Okay. There's a question which is here from Shubham. In case of question with incorrect options, logical flaw, multiple choices, our solution should be mark it or not. If you think the question is incorrect or you are not able to solve, my suggestion is just leave it. Most of the time, occasionally you will be able to, but most of the time you will not be able to find out whether the question is correct or you have not been able to solve. Most probably it is an incorrect question because the level of difficulty of the paper is low. So hence, Shubham, I'll say just leave the question, move on, because if it's an incorrect question, they are likely to give marks to everyone in the paper. Okay. Remember this one. Something which I keep repeating. If it's a difficult paper, it's a difficult paper for everyone, and hence your cutoff will go down. If it's an easy paper, it's an easy paper for everyone. Move fast, don't make errors, and make sure you reach to the end of the paper ASAP. One thing that I want you to always remember is a SNAP is a easy paper. I've been saying this very, very regularly. In an easy paper, the people who lose out are the ones who make errors. Okay? Easy paper implies you need to have high accuracy. Okay? So don't just rush into the question and just start solving it. Read the question carefully. Remember, 120 minutes. After IFT, this paper will look very, very simple. After CAT, this paper will look very, very simple. The time pressure which you had in IFT, the pressure which you have of CAT, you will find that pressure will be missing as far as this particular paper is concerned. Okay? So do read each and every question carefully. Not able to solve, move on. Most of the time you will be able to solve, but not able to solve, just move on. Okay? And don't just jump to calculation or just quickly rush to the question without understanding it. Accuracy is extremely important. In an easy paper, anyone with low accuracy almost every time gets rejected, because in an easy paper, everyone can solve. You leave a question not because you can't solve, you leave a question because of lack of time. Okay? So in an easy paper, you will be able to solve almost all the questions, and hence low accuracy is going to be detrimental to a great extent. Okay? So please stay calm. Please make sure you focus on accuracy. You don't just move at a breakneck speed. Slow down if required. Okay. And yeah, just to repeat, to me, this is what you need to remember for yourself. Okay. This is the key thing. Now, whichever sequence you go with the paper, this is the key. Analytical reasoning and GK to be covered ASAP. These have to be the first two sections. Third and fourth, my suggestion is fourth should be a stronger section. Third should be the weaker of the two, which is English or QA, but frankly, they do not matter too much because the level of difficulty will not be an issue. Okay? Let me just look at the questions which have come from a large number of participants. Snap mocks are more difficult than actual snap? Yes. Snap mocks typically would be more difficult than the actual mocks, actual papers. I hope you have attempted the snap actual papers. The snap papers, which are given as memory-based papers. So every year we take the paper and we try to recreate the paper based on memory. Some of us remember the question, some students contribute to the question. We create the SNAP memory-based papers. Now these SNAP actual papers are available for 2012, 2013, 2014. These are the memory-based papers. Earlier SNAP papers are the actual papers. So these are the memory-based. Okay. And before this, these are the actual papers which were available till 2011. So what should you be doing the next few days? Snap papers. Okay. These papers, and you can go back to as 2008, does not really matter. Okay. Now in all these papers, you should definitely be doing reasoning. If you don't have sufficient time to do all the papers, you should definitely do these three papers. And in the 2008 to 2011 papers, please do the reasoning section definitely, and the English section. Okay? Because in English section, the vocabulary-based questions can get repeated. Okay? Obviously, if you have time, you should do the quant also. Not be too worried about GK. I am not too worried about GK from these because GK again is unlikely to be repeated from one paper to the other. Okay? What should we practice in the next few days strategy? That is what I've just talked about. Okay. Yes, we need to mark the OMR sheet. For me, time, if I say 45 to 50 minutes for the, let's say, analytical and logical reasoning, to me that means that you have to mark the answer within that. Okay, so to me, it is not something which I keep outside the purview. Okay, no sectional cutoffs in Snap, but please do not get a 0 or negative. I'm again repeating, no sectional cutoff. No sectional cutoff, but a 0 or negative can eliminate you. This is not acceptable. If you get a 0 or negative in any section, you are eliminated by and large. But there is no sectional cutoff. And remember, Snap score has a 50% weight in the overall scheme of things. So 50% weight is for Snap and the 50% weight is for GD or case discussion, GD, interview, extempore, VAT or whatever else they do out there. Okay. So this is an important component, and a high score here can definitely help you make to the final stage. It will help you convert this things faster. It will make it easier for you to convert the call if you get a high score in Snap. Yeah. Akanksha Bansal, your message is not in line with what we are discussing out here. Akanksha, please send me an email at gp@careerlauncher.com. Okay, Akanksha, just send me an email at this particular email ID, and I'll discuss this separately with you. Okay, Jaya is saying my score is currently between 82.75 and 85. What can be the tentative score? You are possibly close to the cutoff. 82 to 85 or 83 to 85 out here. Maybe you are between 90 and 95 in actual Snap, but some gap is still there. You need to just push yourself to move slightly faster, or maybe just look at the accuracy. It is the accuracy which is possibly killing you. Okay. Let me look at the Q&A part. Okay. Any question in the Q&A? Yes. Deepak is saying, if I score 22 in LR, which is not my strong area, I'll have to maximize in scores in the others. Look at it this way, Deepak. If your reasoning, you get a 22 marks. You need about 80 marks in the other three sections. With my understanding, most of the students will not be able to get more than 15 marks. They'll be closer to 10 marks, which means you need to get at least a 65 or maybe close to 70 marks in Quant and English. 65 to 70 marks in Quant and English out of 80 is going to be a little difficult. Okay. So a 22 in LR is not acceptable. The minimum score in LR that you should be targeting should be about 35. You get a 35 in LR, okay, which is about 16, 17 or less than 20 net correct answers out of 30 questions. Okay. And you get a 10 in GK. That makes it 45. And then you can still target a 30 each in Quant and English. But if you can make this as 45 or plus, reasoning as 45 plus, then it becomes safe. But with a 2022 in LR, getting a final call from, getting an interview call from any of the top symbolic institutes is going to be extremely difficult, Deepak. Okay, general category students in SIMS Pune, I don't have the data with me, but it's likely to be about 70 percentile only. Okay. SIMS Pune 65 percentile is likely to be about 70 marks. Okay. Last few days, more emphasis should be on current affairs or static GK. Now, that's the most difficult part actually. Because when we look at current affairs and static GK, that's fine. We differentiate in that way. But when you look at Snap past papers, it has varied a lot. There's no specific thing which says, okay, this is the only kind of GK which comes in the paper. This is the only kind of question which appear in Snap GK. There's a variety, and all kind of questions will come. So focus on my suggestion for GK will be for GK the mocks. Okay, and when I say mocks, it is going to be Snap mocks. It is also IFT mocks. And if you have started taking that mocks also. And GK compendium. This is what has to be a starting point. Apart from that, whatever else you can do in terms of GK, it is perfectly fine. Can you provide 12, 13, 14 papers? Yes, 2012 to 14 papers are available in your SIS. Check out for actual memory-based snap papers. Check out for memory-based snap papers. These are the three 2012, 13, 14 papers, and they are available only in CL. They are not available in others. They are not available with others. What should be the lowest score to get a call in GK? In GK, please make sure you get a 2 to 3 kind of a thing. As I said, a 0 or a negative. 0 or negative will lead to elimination. Just get a positive score in GK, that will suffice. But if you can get some 10, 12 marks, that makes your task that much easier. Okay? And I'm again repeating, I would want reasoning. Okay, let me just go back to the, I want 45 odd in reasoning, something like 55 odd here, and then you are safe out here. So whatever 4, 5 marks you get in general awareness, you should be able to do it. Saikat says, I start with DI set to get speed and confidence, then I go to LR. Is it right? Saikat, if it is working for you, I don't have an issue. Okay. If it's working for you, I don't have an issue. Okay. SIMC Pune, how is good is SIMC Pune? SIMC Pune is still acceptable. SIMC Bangalore is a new institute compared to SIMC Pune, and is still trying to establish itself. But better than SIMC Pune or SIMC Bangalore is to do a MBA marketing and then get into advertising in other areas. Okay? So look at SIMC Pune and SIMC Bangalore can at best be your, let's say, be a backup option. A preference would be, for example, a KJ Somaya, Velankar. Marketing is likely to be better option than SIMC Pune and Bangalore. Negative marking is 1/4 in Snap. Not connected to this thing, but just since this is relevant for most of you, you want a live recording of a ZAT paper that I will be doing in any case. So I will be recording a ZAT paper and I will be making it available for all these students. That's way I've done it for CAT and IFT papers. 18 Snapbox is a little low, as I said earlier. I would look at in Snapbox, you would be closer to 95. Okay. Pratik is asking, if no sectional cutoff, can't we spend more time on strong area? Yes, you can. You should. And when you look at the time limits which I have given out here, there's a range which is given out here. Okay. So there's 25 to 30, quant is 30 to 35, reasoning is 40 to 45, general awareness 15 is what I've given. And even if I say 10 minutes to general awareness and 2 to 3 minutes for scanning of the paper, you still have 2-3 minutes available. Okay. So if you happen to be strong in English and you think you will take 30 minutes to complete the section, go ahead and do it. But then you'll need to cut down time somewhere. So these are the broad benchmarks that I've given, but you need to finalize the list, the exact time limit for yourself. 90 to 92 marks in CL marks. Yes, you should register for SIBM if you have not done so already. Okay. Pratik is asking, how difficult is it to score 45 in LR? Not very difficult. Okay. What that will mean, out of the 30 questions, okay, out of the 30 questions of reasoning, okay, you will have to attempt something like 25 questions, and almost all of them have to be correct. Now, why is it possible you may not be able to get 45? Because if there's a set of 3 questions which are incorrect, you can't. Okay. So which is why to me it is always reasoning 40 to 45 marks is what I'm looking at. If it's a perfect paper with no errors, which is difficult as far as symbiosis is concerned, I would look at a 40 to 45 marks. But if otherwise, I will be happy with a 40. So 40 to 45 in reasoning is what I will always look at to make sure I get a call from this paper. Okay. Lakshya, just check out the actual snap papers also. I'm getting 120 in CL mocks. Great, Lakshya, if you're getting 120, you are on the right track. In fact, you have a very good chance of reaching the top. But don't assume the level of difficulty is going to be easy. I have mentioned it a number of times today itself. The cutoff for SIBM Pune, which is typically a 97 to 98 percentile, let's take a 97 to 98 percentile, it has ranged from 90 marks to something like 118 marks. So there's a huge range, though most of the time about a score of 105 is good enough. But this is a huge range and you need to make sure you don't miss out on this. If we do CLGK compendium for SNAP, will it be sufficient to score at least 10 marks? It should be, but as I said earlier, along with the GK compendium, you should do the mock SNAP, IFT and ZAT. Their GK also you should mug up completely. Okay. Okay. Any other question? I seem to be getting the same questions again and again now. Okay. Okay, I'm not getting good marks in mocks. I have applied for all top colleges. It might be useful to apply for the medium level college also. Do I need to apply for SSBF as my interest in finance? SSBF will possibly give a call to almost everyone because cutoff is likely to be very low. So yes, you can definitely apply to it, but purely from a placement perspective, it still has to prove itself. But yes, you can apply to it as a backup option. As I said earlier also, to me the institutes that need to be targeted are these. Okay. To me, this is preference 1, preference 2, preference 3, preference 4 as far as I am concerned. Then, if you are in defense, this is a very good option, number 5. If you are outside defense, then you'll have to look at either SITM or SIOM depending upon your area of interest. Okay. But to me, these are the 4 and 3 top 7 institutes out of the 16 odd institutes of SNAP that you need to look at. Okay, anything else? Parth is asking me, is it advisable to career launcher mocks or past year papers? If you have not taken the past year papers, you should definitely take them. So maybe you need to take a one odd mock now and focus more on the past papers. And past papers, SNAP 2012, 13, 14. The memory-based papers, they should definitely be attempted by you. And from the other papers, 2008 to 11, definitely do reasoning, followed by English and then QA. You can ignore GK from the old papers, but reasoning especially, followed by English and then QA is is the sequence you should follow in doing the old papers. Saikat, yes, some LR questions, SNAP 2014 memory based are incomplete because it is memory based. Okay, Pratik, I've already answered your question. SITM, what should be the cutoff? SITM, the cutoff, as I mentioned here, is something like a 70 percentile, and which in terms of marks is likely to be 75 odd marks. Okay. Okay. I think that almost completes the question. Vibhor is asking, what if I attempt quant, which is my strong section, then LR and then GK and English at last? Vibhor, my suggestion is try, if you have tried this in a few mocks and this seems to be working for you, please go ahead with it. Which means if you have started with the paper with quant, then you move to LR and then GK and English, I don't have any issue if you are getting a good score out of this. What should be my score range for SIIB? SIIB will be something like, in general, you can say something like 88 to 90 percentile is likely to be about 90 marks or so. Okay. But as I said, this will keep changing from year to year. So don't worry about this. Look at just making sure you do as many questions as possible in the paper, because this is a paper in which you can complete the question. This is a paper in which you will not leave questions because of lack of time. You leave questions because they are incorrect, or you leave questions because you can't solve them. Overall level of difficulty is not high, and while people tend to think that that 120 minutes 150 question is high, the fact is that this is in this paper. Okay, let me just go back to this particular thing. Okay. Now, if you look at this, remove these general awareness questions. Okay. Now, if you remove these general awareness questions in 10 minutes, for the three sections of analytical reasoning, quant, and English, these are 80, 110 questions in 110 minutes. So, as far as I am concerned, this is not 150 questions, 120 minutes, because these 40 questions are typically 10-minute item. So when I'm looking at this paper, I will again go back and say, I just don't want to keep GK in the equation at all. I'll just remove GK, maximize in the others, get a 10, 12, 15, whatever I can, and move on with my life. If vocab is not a plus point, how many can be scored in English? Nishita, vocab is not a plus point, then vocab is almost a 40 to 50% of the paper. You'll struggle as far as this paper is concerned. My suggestion is, if vocab is not your plus point, make sure you mug up all the words which are in the past snap papers and in the so what you need to do if vocab is not your strong point. So vocab from here, and vocab from here, and vocab from mocks. Please make sure you mug up all the vocab related questions from these papers. Just hopefully this will take care of your issue. Not necessary, but there's a small chance that will work out for you. Lakshya, my request is to give a question only once. Writing a question 10 to 15 times only makes my life difficult. Okay, because I have to keep, then I tend to miss out on some of the questions of others. Do you have a video analysis of snap paper in CIS? No, unfortunately, I have not created a video analysis of any snap paper. SIBM Pune Innovation and Entrepreneurship, shall we apply? It can be a good backup option. It's a new program, but since it is SIBM Pune, I think it can be considered. If you are scoring 65 to 70 Shivam and Snap mocks, you are likely to be about 75 to 18 in the actual snap. Yeah. Okay, it seems that I have possibly covered almost all the questions. SCIT any good? I am interested in IT. SCIT is a reasonable institute. You can consider it as a backup option. Okay. So SCIT, if you think you would be happy with a salary range of 6 odd lakhs or so, then yes, you should consider it. What would be the score range for SIIB? Okay. There is a marks 88 to 90 percentile. Typically 90 to 95 marks should be more than enough. Prateek is asking, when will IFT interviews happen? Most probably end of January. So Prateek, assuming you have, I believe you would have got a call, else you would not have asked this question. Hopefully you have started preparing for IFT interviews immediately. How is the placement of SIM? Is it worth it? It's a reasonable placement. It's not a very, very high level placement. It's not bad also. And if you have interest in operation, is a good option. You can expect a fresher to get a salary range of 6 to 7, while someone with work experience would probably get a salary range of 8 to 9. And you could get slightly higher than what I'm telling you. So SIOM, interested in operations, yes, you should consider it. Is SIBM better than NMIMS? SIBM versus NMIMS. Both of them are at the same level. And let us discuss which one to join once you get calls from both of them. But SIBM Pune, SCM HRD Pune, and NMIMS Bombay are at the same level. Anmol not able to give mock snap because they want admit card in PDF format, while admit card. Anmol, just email your issue to me at gp@careerlauncher.com. Okay, and let me just see. This seems to be some error somewhere because this would not have happened otherwise. Okay, so Anmol, please email it to me at my email ID, your details and the issue. Okay, I think it's done. Does SCMHRD consider profile calls? No, SCMHRD, all Symbiosis Institute give calls only on the basis of your snap score. Can there be incorrect question in English section? Yes, there can be incorrect question in English section also. Okay. Okay, Nishita, just repeating the answer because you could not hear the answer which I had given earlier. If vocabulary is not a plus point, how many can we score in English? If vocabulary is not a plus point, then Nishita, you will have to focus on rest of the paper, and then you can get only about 15, on the high side 20 marks. But to ensure you are able to do well in vocabulary, please make sure you mark up all the words, all the vocabulary related questions, snap papers of 12, 13, 14, all the vocabulary related questions, snap papers of 2008 to 11, and all the vocabulary related questions of mock snaps. Please do this. Hopefully this will help you get another 5 to 10 questions. Okay, how to prepare IFT and NM interview? Please read my blog post, 5 mantras to master the interview. This is Jyotishman. How to prepare for IFT and NM interviews, what to do? Please refer to my blog post, 5 mantras to master the interview. Okay, I'm not able to find snap memory based papers in this. Can you help me? I'll ask the team to have them placed in the front page so that you don't miss it. Okay. Okay, there's another question which says, if I mark an answer to incorrect question, what will happen? If you mark an answer to incorrect question, nothing will happen. Either you will get a 0, that is if the question is eliminated, or everyone will get the marks for that question. Okay. I don't think there's anything else. If I realize I have marked the wrong answer, what should I do? Nothing. You can't do anything. Be careful. Snap, you have to mark the answer with a pen, a ballpoint pen. Okay. And which means you can't change your answer. So mark your answer only if you're 100% sure. When in doubt, just leave it and move on. How much can I score in quant if I'm not good in geometry? Typically, geometry will not find very difficult as far as snap is concerned. It is going to be childish as compared to what you have seen in CAT and other papers. Okay. Score required to SCM HRD, SIBM, they are very close to each other. The gap between 2 to 3 marks. Okay. So assume SIBM and SCM HRD are the same marks which you need to target. Okay, yes. Okay. So that completes the session, and since there are no further questions, I would like to close the session here. Thank you very much for being patient. One thing that I will do is I'll try to get those snap papers up in your essays in the upfront. Okay. Thank you very much. All the best. If there are any questions which are left unanswered, you can email them to me at gp@careerlauncher.com, or you can send me a message on my blog. Thank you very much. All the best.